Welcome to episode 77 of the Trainer's Scoop. In today's episode, I'm very, very happy to be joined by Chris Beal. Chris, say what's up to the people real quick, my man.
What's up, people? How you guys doing? Thanks for tuning in and listening.
Chris, we might have had a water bottle malfunction, but that is it's all up from here, man.
I
So
sat there and I put it down. I was like, that's a good way to start. Hey, I'm Chris and I don't have water in my eye,
just more incentive to watch
right?
the podcast. Go check it
This
out on
guy's got to
YouTube.
be interesting. He can't even drink water.
So Chris, man, we got a co-owner of Progressive Performance. Overall,
Yes.
I feel like just I could go on and on, right? Like former college athlete, online coach, overall just interesting guy. Like especially seeing your life recently. There's so much that I could get into, but I feel like the conversation will tell the story.
No, yeah, of course. I mean, I think it's always better. I think people like hearing stories. And that's something I'm trying to get better at is allowing stories to develop in conversations with people in social media. Like instead of saying, hey, I have to tell everybody what's going on right now, but really just allowing like the story to kind of take ownership of that process. But yeah, no, just for everyone listening, I told David that if he introduced me as the guy who works for Bryce, I would just exit the podcast immediately. I would just say, fuck this shit, get out of here, and then leave all bad Yelp reviews. Um, but no, yeah, so yeah, Bryce and I obviously best friends. I was in his wedding, but that didn't last that long. But no, I known him since college, and I was doing other things and kind of watching his business grow. I was growing elsewhere, and then it came to a point in time where he needed help, and he trusted me enough to kind of come in and be that other side of the brain. So I've been doing that for the last 3 years. Yeah, fuck, 3 years. It's been great. It's been a ride.
Yeah, and I just love that about P2 is that you have just these like two forces like teamed up
Yeah.
and are doing the thing, man. So like once again, if you're not familiar with P2, I've had Bryce on the podcast 2 times now. So just go ahead and look that up on Instagram. They do great work with their coaching. I was involved in the P2 internship, which was just really like formative for me, a great experience. Worked under Bryce, worked under Chris, and the rest of the P2 team. So I can't say enough good things about your company, man. You guys are killing it, and I just appreciate everything you do.
No, man, I appreciate that. I think that the internship was a really cool time, right? So Bryce headed the internship. For those who don't know or haven't seen the episodes of the Bryce's, if you've seen those, you know this. Bryce likes to talk. He likes to educate. He likes to share the things that he knows, and it gave him a constructive outlet for that. And everyone I've met or gotten close to and got to, just kind of develop a deeper relationship with, either during or after the internship, has said the same thing, that they just received a lot of value from it. I think that's the biggest thing. I'm a salesman, a natural born salesman. That's what I've always been. And in that, I've always been about the service I provide. And there's probably a ton to unpack there in the realm of trauma and why I feel like service is what I have to provide to feel a level of self-worth and value. But I mean, there's definitely the aspect that like I like to positively impact people. And so does Bryce. Like when you leave the room, you want the people that you've interacted with to have been better because you were present. And so P2, that is the unsaid like ethos of the company. So yeah, no, it's like-minded people, similar missions, trying to do our very best, even though we bump our heads a little bit, but we get back up.
Yeah, definitely, man. So you briefly mentioned great friends with Bryce. You guys met in college, right?
Yeah, he was the guy who knew everything in class as people were learning it for the first time. It was just like, annoying as fuck, but also like I'm gonna be friends with that guy because not only is he huge, but we'd be like in lab and we're learning like planes, right? For the first time, they're introducing planes, and he was like, "Yeah, does anyone know what this is?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's the frontal plane." And oh yeah, that's the sagittal plane. That's the transverse plane too. If you want me to answer that one, I can like, all right, Hermione
No,
Granger,
no
like shut the
way.
fuck up, bro. Like just chill out. But no, it's one of those things where I had just transferred to Ohio State. I was playing football at a school before that, and I needed a new outlet. I spent my entire life um trying to be better than other people at a specific thing, that being football. and I didn't have that. So I started getting into the gym and training because I wanted some other like physical thing. And so we just so happened to train at the same gym, live on the same side of campus. And so I see him in class, see him in the gym, and eventually I just walked up to him one day and I was like, "Hey, bro, you care if I train with you?" And for those, again, if you've seen Bryce, met him, or know him, he's a lot less socially awkward than he was back then because he just kind of gave me a couple of grunts of like, "Oh yeah, I mean, if you want, whatever, right?" And so, I show up there the next day, and then if you let him tell it, like I just didn't stop showing up. Like he trains really fucking hard, at least he used to, and so that's where I started to learn how to train and train really hard. I'd never trained like that. Obviously, very different style of training compared to what I had done most of my life. But there was something about wanting to die every day and just sitting and bullshitting about sports, girls, LeBron, whatever, and it matched up really well. So, yeah, and then since then it's just kind of been like this,
Yeah, yeah, that's so awesome, man. Like, just it's kind of rare that you find someone like that and you guys click the way you do, just randomly almost. Do you remember any of like the training sessions that you guys had? Like, does any particular one just where you did some crazy shit or like where you guys just demolished each other in the gym? Anything stick out?
Yeah, it was always leg days for us, right? Like, I think that lower body intensity is something it's got a gray area this big, right? Like upper body, you can tell very quickly when someone is or isn't working hard.
Mhm.
But lower body, because I mean, like, a leg press, like you can always feel like you can do one more if you're honest with yourself. You always, and so it's different when you have two people in there who like semi hate themselves. Who are like, we're just going to keep going until we can't, right? You have someone with put their hand on a leg press and say, until you can't push this up yourself, you are not allowed to put your hands on those handles and rack this, right? So you're just dying, like fucking pissing yourself, and this person's just like, "Go, you got it, you can do it," right? We would do rack pulls to fucking failure. Like, what? Like, just there's chains on the side. We're like, just go until your fucking spine snaps, bro. It's just like, okay, sweet, let's do it, right? You keep hearing the chains bounce, 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 bounce. And then before you know it, like again, like from the tears to pissing yourself to cutting yourself, like if you name it, we've done it while training. But I think that's where a lot of like our anecdotal experience of like, hey, this is how you train intelligently, this is how you don't. There's room for you're being a pussy, like stop. If you want to get better, this is how you do it. And also, we did a lot of dumb shit that our bodies are still paying for today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's like I just like hearing you guys talk on the P2 podcast. Like I love the stories and yeah, like that trade-off of like, oh, like this is truly formative and that we learned true intensity, but then it's like, damn, like I have these continual injuries that pop up. It's I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it were me, if I would regret that or if it's just all part of like the learning process.
100%. I think that um, in our most recent podcast, where I don't have a haircut and I look terrible, but we did it. We did the damn thing.
Nah.
Um, we talk about like where resiliency comes, right? Where it's built. And the more and more I read, the more and more I learn, the more and more I reflect on the things I can continue to get better at in both professional and personal life, the more and more I look and begin to understand the world around me through that self-reflection. Um, the more I'm thankful for the really hard shit that I've been through. Like the times when I thought life wasn't fair, the times when I see my peers being able to do and experience things that I didn't get to. There's the resentment that you harbor for your situation. And for me, I thought in my perspective, a kind of odd way when I look at it. Like as a kid, I'd be like, dude, you have an X percentage shot like to be born into any family. Like this is the family I'm born into. No fucking money, broken morals, broken nuclear home. But I look back on all the things that I went through and I'm like, honestly, I look at the people who lived easier lives, a more relatively traditional childhood where their parents were always around and they showed up to every game and they were able to make sure that they had their shit together for college, whether they paid for it or they put them in position to pay for it themselves or have it paid for by other spaces. Like I don't know if anyone listening has seen the inside of what a FAFSA form looks like, but like I did that shit at 17. I went and Googled it and sat down and asked my parents for their information. I didn't hand it to them and tell them to do it. I went and did it, right? Um, I handled college transfers. I handled having a job while playing football. I handled not being able to go to spring break until my senior year in college. Everyone's going to Panama City and getting wild. Like, I'm working, right? I'm working until coming back to, winter ball. And not winter ball, I'm sorry, it would have been spring ball. But like in the wintertime when people were on like Christmas break and stuff like that, I'm working through the holidays. I was in retail and then come back to winter ball. So in those time periods, I was very like sad. I was very like, this fucking sucks. But I look back on them and they taught me how to work hard. They taught me that shit doesn't always bounce in your direction and you need to know how to get up from those situations. And so I'm thankful for them. And training and breaking yourself made my body really strong, but also made my mind really, really strong as well, because it taught me, hey, here are your limits, but also you can push these, you can continue to push these, and how you push them matters, but they can be pushed.
This is why we had Chris on the podcast. These exact things, right? So I remember, was about just over a year ago now. I did some videography work for Chris, and I just remember when we were in the car, we were talking, and I was just like, "Damn, it's kind of like a profound conversation out of nowhere." And that was like the first time we'd ever really spent like considerable amount of time together. First time we ever, did anything together.
Yeah.
And I think that's just like such like a great strength to have, for you to have that perspective. But I have a question for you as a follow up. So you had a lot of hardships that you endured. At the time, it doesn't feel fair. It feels uncomfortable. For me, like one that really pops out to me is like, damn, like I'm like 26, right? And
Mhm.
put a lot of time into like creating content and for my coaching. And it's still like probably partially due to lack of effort, but also just like certain things not panning out that could have. And I'm like, damn, like my business could be better. Like my presence on social media could be better for all of like the quality that I try to disperse. And in the moment, like thinking of those things and still putting in the work, it sucks, right? So like
Mhm.
I'm sure as you were coming up, you also thought like this fucking sucks. But is that inherently part of what will pay off and make it all worth it and make those lessons so like valuable? Or is there a way to kind of like put those things into perspective as you're going along?
Good question. Yeah, so failure is part of the process. You learn far more from failure than you do from success. Those are cliches. Plenty of people have said them. Um, I also think that, so for me, in sales, you have to know where your strengths are. Um, People my entire life have told me like, oh, you're super articulate, and I've always had a mixed bag of emotions with that, because I'm like, well, am I articulate plainly, objectively, which I believe I am? And are you also saying that because I'm black, right? Like, you're articulate for a black guy, which that's a whole different conversation. In that though, I'm like, okay, sweet. So that means I can articulate how I feel. I can clearly illustrate to another person that I'm a trustworthy source, that I'm someone they want to listen to, that I'm someone that they want to engage with. And then I'm good looking. I'm like, all right, sweet. Not because I feel like I'm good looking, but because plenty of people have told me that I'm good looking. So I'm like, all right, well, sweet. I know that no matter what, male or female, people buy from people that look a certain way, that have a certain appeal to them, both physically and energetically, right? So I played to those. And also, I think that it's important to put yourself in the uncomfortable spaces. Where I don't feel the most confident is taking on that teacher role, right? I'm the guy that we get in the trenches with you. And like, even when I worked at Best Buy, when I sold medical supplies, I never spoke to a doc like this, right? I never got across the table from him. I got on the same side of the table with him, and I picked up the products and I picked up the fucking faux bones, and I did it with him because it was easier for me to engage on a peer level than it was for me to engage in a let me show you level. But I think there's value in both. So I say that to frame, you should have the things that you know are your niches, right? Where are you good? Like, where are you, David, good? Where do you find most people go, yes, Dave, that's what I want. That's what I fucking want. Keep giving it to me, and run that shit. That should be your mothership, right? but eventually the mothership will get tired, it'll run dry, it'll need more enhancements. And that's where putting yourself in those uncomfortable positions, those uncomfortable situations, like, hey, like, where can I get better? I can get better as an educator. I can get better at presenting new media, new findings, coupled with data analytics, and then also my anecdotal experience, putting it in a way that is palatable and digestible by people who don't understand what I understand. I can get much better at that. I have a lot of opportunity to grow there. It's easy to fall onto the things like, dude, I can just post a picture of me, shirtless. I can post a picture of me making a joke with Bryce, or training really hard and working with a client, and just show like, hey, listen, I'm not going to tell you what I know, but I show you that I know what I know. Appeals to a lot, but I'm leaving a lot on the table by not saying, hey, let me just explain this concept to people and show them, give them that proof of knowledge. And so, to answer your question in a very long form way there, and kind of wrap it up, yes, there is a lot to gain in those struggles. And also, I don't think people should spend their entire process beating their heads against the wall. You have to find a place to succeed. Otherwise, it's really hard to keep waking up, right? If you keep putting in hours and hours and hours into your social media content, right? And then you get 10 likes, 60 likes, 100 likes, and you're like, bro, I put a fucking 3 hours into this post and no one seems to care as much as I want them to care. Well, no one's ever going to care as much as you want them to care. So just get that through your head right now. And two, you have to find a way to almost like game yourself, right? Cheat code yourself. Well, if I write this really long form post and I just titrate it into a bunch of different things, I'll probably get similar interaction on all of them, the long form and the short form post. I actually might get better interaction on the short form post than I do in the long form post, because more people would rather put on slippers, flip flops, than put on tennis shoes, because tennis shoes takes time. Tennis shoes takes effort. So if you can give it to them in a way that's very easy for them, they'll probably engage with it more likely, and you get that gratification. Like, yes, it's paying off, even if it doesn't pay off in the way you want. And that will propel you to keep putting yourself into those hard situations, because it's paying off in another way. You got to find the things that work and feed yourself a little bit there, right? Kind of fill your battery before you go and expend it on something again that probably won't fill it up the way that you want it to.
Yeah. That's very well put. With your transition from medical sales to full-time coaching and co-owning a business, did you find that much of that like thought process applied? Like, I'm just curious to hear more about that transition as well, because so many people, I'm sure, in your circle were like, dude, this is a very lucrative, great career that you're leaving to do something that's a little bit risky.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my mom almost cried. Yeah, it's one of those things where um I've I guess I feel like when you're when you're born a have not, like when you don't have shit, right? When your parents are bartering for fucking food stamps and shit, when you are at school and they're running a can drive and you're like, I think what I'm gonna do is take the fucking green beans we have in, but I'm taking those fucking sweet potatoes home. Like, I am
Trade 'em.
needy, bitch. Like, I'm a trade. I'm not contributing. Like, this is what's happening. So, I think when you come from that position, it, like I said, there's parts of it that suck, but then there's also parts of it that are good, because I think it makes you very risk accepting, right? Because when you don't have a lot, you live your life with a nothing to lose mentality. And I can always just keep working to get it back. But if you're born with something, you're born with something to protect, something to not fuck up, you live your life playing defense all the time. You never actually get to jump into the offensive space, because you're afraid of what happens when you stop paying attention to the eggs in your basket. So that being said, yeah, I had a lot of eggs in my basket at Striker, right? I was like 24 years old. I'm making $110,000 a year. I'm like, my friends, I was that friend, right? I mean, we'd go out. I'm like, I got it. I had all the shoes. I went everywhere I wanted to go. But I didn't know my life, right? I worked with a really, really cool group of people, friends that I'll have for life. But it's one of those things where, I don't know, are those my dogs or your dogs? Okay. Can you even hear them?
Yeah, just a little bit. It's not bad.
Okay, cool. But friends I'll have for life. But I mean, I worked 70, 75 hours a week. I spent all my time in surgery. I made a lot of money that I couldn't spend on the things I wanted. So I would just fucking hang out on Amazon between cases because I needed retail therapy. I needed to feel like I was getting something back for what I was putting in. But I mean, it taught me to lock in. It taught me to work really, really hard. It taught me to chase something. It taught me that when you do all those things, it does pay off, because before you're making $110,000 a year, you're making $55,000 a year to work more hours, and the shit hours, right? You're showing up to all the cases, but you're also delivering all the trays. There's a quick initiation story. I had been working maybe 4 days, right? 4 days, met the whole team, very, very similar to football, right? No one's giving you shit. No one's being super cool, super nice. It's very much like, come in and show us that you belong here. Otherwise, like, we'll boot you, right? And that's very much the medical sales, but definitely striker. And so I remember I got up that morning probably like 4:30 because we lived outside of Cincinnati. So I had to drive an hour to hour and a half to get anywhere. So especially getting to like UC, and UC is a teaching hospital. You get in there, you get credential and stuff like that, but it's all a process, right? So I spend almost all day there, drive down to Kentucky, spend almost all day there, drive out to Miami of Ohio, spend the rest of the day there. And as we're wrapping up 8 p.m. after being up at 4:30, getting to a case by 6:30, we drive a group chat, and he goes, hey, there's a case at Edgewood, which is in Kentucky, starts at 7:30 tomorrow, so the trays have to go tonight. Well, our drivers stopped running at 5, so that means lowest guy on the totem pole has to go deliver them. I'm like, sweet, I know how this goes. In my head, I'm like, I got it. So from Miami, Ohio, drive back down towards Liberty, which is near Cincinnati, grab the trays, make sure I have all the trays I need, start driving to Kentucky, right? An hour into that drive, almost to Kentucky, he just added another one. Those also need to be delivered tonight, which means after dropping those trays off and processing them so they're good to go 7 hours from then, drive back to Cincinnati to drive back to Kentucky. Matt then told me the next day, I knew about both those cases at 4 p.m. I could have given the drivers the option to deliver those trays. I waited to see what you would do. And you showed up, right? You showed up. You didn't bitch about it. You didn't moan about it. You just stayed up till 2 a.m. and now you're here at UC again at 6:30. And that's good. And I didn't get a pat on the back. I didn't get a bonus. That's good. And of course, I want him to care way more about what the fuck I just did, because I'm operating on very little sleep in the last 72 hours. But I think that if you can take anything from that, that's how the world works. You will always, 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 especially when you're a creator, or you're trying to put forth something that represents you, people will never appreciate it as much as you want them to. And you have to appreciate it, and you have to understand why you're doing something. And so when I sat there and said, hey, listen, I'm going to leave Striker, it wasn't because I hated Striker. It wasn't because I felt like I was underappreciated. It's like, I want something different. And I also know what it's like to go out and create something and realize that no one's going to care about as much as you do. So I have the goods. I have the ability to do the things I saw people doing, right? I saw friends like Dylan, et cetera, like take ownership of their lives and really create something that gave them their time back, that gave them their abilities to, really own their life, to travel when they wanted, make a lot of money, do the things, get tattoos. Like, no one could tell them what to do. And I'm like, I can do that. I'm built for that. Like Striker, the things before this, all of my life made me for that. And so when people had that pushback of like, hey, dude, like, one, this is a very different style of job. And two, do you know the gold mine that you're leaving? I was like, yeah, I also know the gold mine I'm chasing. And you might not see it yet because you don't have the perspective I have. You're not built like me, right? So yeah, I mean, that the transition was a lot of fun. It is very, very different. I miss Striker sometimes, but not because I don't like anything about what I'm doing, but I miss being in surgery. I miss the cool aspect of working with surgeons, but not enough to go back to working 80 hours a week or to move back to Cincinnati.
Can't blame you there. I feel like Denver's a pretty dope spot to be in, so cannot blame you there.
Mountains. I'm
Yeah,
looking at them
man.
right now.
Yeah. It's just also completely unrelated to my next question, but like, so wild when you're in Denver and you're just driving out to like a trailhead and you just see like walls of mountain and rock, you're like, damn, I really grew up around some corn and people out here in these okay. Yeah, we made it.
It's dope because I love water. I love massive bodies of water. And it might have to do something with the fact that like I can swim, just so people know out there. I am black and I can swim. But not great. Like I won't drown type swim, you know? But I just enjoy my time in the mountains. And there's an aspect of, I think a lot, my brain's always on, and somehow mountains find a way to turn them off because the vastness of them, the grandness of them reminds me that like my life and the problems within it is like, it's that much, right? It means that much in the grand scheme of the cosmos, of existence, of time. And so it just reminds me to be present and to really, really enjoy the process and where I'm at, which I think is really beautiful and I need. Otherwise, I'll probably stress myself into an early grave.
Yeah, dude. That's a great perspective. I realize I'm about to ask this question, and we are on free Zoom, so we have about 7 minutes. So if we go over, we could probably just pick it up right where we left off
Yeah.
if you click that same link. But you've mentioned Bryce and Dylan, and then a good group of friends that you made while working at Striker. But one thing I definitely see in your what you share to the world is you have a great group of friends and like just like such a positive support group. And that's hard, man. Like something I've talked about with other people is like, especially after college, people move away. It's hard to find that. Can you talk a little bit about like just the circle of people that you've surrounded yourself with, how you got that type of deal?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I think good people in your life is really important. You're some of the people around you. Um, I think it's also really important to diversify your friend group, right? In a multitude of ways, not just, where people are from, what they think, but what they look like, what they've been through, what their families are like. I was lucky. I grew up in a broken home, which made me equip myself with the ability to create family everywhere else. I was always accused of caring more about my friends than I did my own family, and it's because I did. But it's not in a way to scorn them at all. My immediate family, my mom, my dad, I talk to them actually probably a lot more than I used to when I was a kid. We have hour-long conversations, and because they were young parents, 17 and 19 when they had me, we speak a lot more like peers, but with that tone of respect, right? Obviously, from them being my parents, but for hours, and I tell them everything, like sexual adventures, relationship problems, this, that. Like I don't hold drugs. Like I tell my mom about, hey, I took a gram of shrooms, and I'm telling you right now, Mom, it was not a gram of shroom. Like shit like that. And those are opportunities I've been afforded because of the relationships we had when I was a kid that were not typical parent-child relationships. But it did equip me with the ability to connect really quickly because I had to learn how to. And also connect in a diversified of ways, right? I'm a black guy who has Harry Potter riddled in his tattoos and anime on the back. You got Bruce Lee behind me, a guitar over here. But I'm also in a group chat with my friends running fantasy, and we're bullshitting and talking about, LeBron and this and that. And I have friends who look like me from where I'm from, right? Friends who have sold drugs, friends who, have friends who do things that we won't talk about. And then I also have friends who own multi-million-dollar businesses that, have been to places in the world I may never go. And I think that's really important. It's given me a lot of opportunity and perspective to connect and learn things I might not have learned. And I do think it comes from my ability to kind of blend enough that people always feel a level of connectivity. My mom always said I could be in any room, right? You could drop me in the White House and I can have a conversation. You could also drop me in fucking Compton and I can have a conversation. And I think that there is a skill in that I don't ever really think I paid super close attention to. So much as it just kind of developed. So having relationships with people I think that are like you but also not like you are super important, and that's how I've chosen all my friends. Like I have my friends from home that I can reminisce with, right? There are things about my life that Bryce will never get. Like he'll never understand what it's like to be a black kid growing up in Akron. He just never will. And it doesn't stop us from being close. It doesn't stop us from being able to share stories. And then there's also the aspect of like there's conversations about the intercelestial cosmic collective consciousness that I can't take home. I can't take to some of my friends. I realize that there's a certain intellectual barrier or threshold there that, you know, cannot be usurped because they don't think like that. And it's not that I've outgrown them so much as like, okay, I just understand what this is and what that is. And I think the more that, you know, I'll phrase it, the people who have like 2 or 3 close friends, kudos to you, because either you found really, really good people who are able to fill a lot of buckets for you, right, in your life, or you don't have that many buckets that need to be filled. And I have a lot of buckets. I have a lot of interests. I have a lot of things that I care about, a lot of things that I want to think and converse about deeply. And so I need a lot of really good people to fill all those buckets, because to rely on any individual partner, best friend, brother, mom, dad, or whatever to meet me at all of those points at exactly where I need to be met, I'll be lacking. I'll be like, I can't have this with you. Now I have to sit and talk about myself, right? Like talking to my current girlfriend about past girlfriends, right? Well, if I couldn't talk to her about it, I have to take it to Bryce or take it to Dom or take it to one of my other friends, right? But being able to talk to her about it goes, oh, okay, that's one less bucket that I have to go and seek from someone else. But it's the quality of person that she is. It's how great that she is, right? Being able to talk about race stuff with Bryce and fitness stuff with Bryce and relationship stuff with Bryce. It's like, okay, sweet, lots of buckets. And so those are people that you bring in that are closer. But then I also have the people that like I might have had 5 collective conversations with, but all 5 of them are super intimate and super genuine because there's a part of us, even if it is 5%, that connected at an almost kindred level, which lends itself to a closeness, at least in some capacity. And so I just open myself up to that, and I think that's how I end up with the friends that I have.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, man. I can relate on just having like these various buckets, right? Like so many different interests and so many different kind of like hats that I can wear. And I feel like the tricky part now is like when you move, let's say, or like when your interests start to diverge from like the majority of people. It's
Mm-hmm.
really tricky to find that. And you'll always have those like groups of people. Like I still have like all of my great friends that, you know, I knew from college and met in the gyms over the years, met with, you know, like working construction, whatever it might be, quite a range there.
Yeah.
And and I don't know if the answer is like looking for new friends, investing heavier in like the current situations and current friendships. But yeah, that's like just thinking about it that way. Yeah, the buckets analogy of friendship, that was good. I like that.
Yeah, no, I think buckets is a really easy analogy. It's not one that's too complicated. I think that a lot of people try to sound more elevated or whatever by using different analogies. Like, yes, man, like you gotta loosen up the chakras and really allow for the connective, energetic. And it's like, bro, shut up. It's like buckets. Buckets is really easy, right? You got buckets of things in your personal life that are within you, completely within you, and then you have external buckets. And keeping an eye on those buckets is really important, because I think a lot of times people can get into 1 or 2 modes, taking or giving, and you want to keep filling your bucket, filling your bucket, filling your bucket, and not realizing you're not giving a lot back, which eventually turns into you not filling your bucket because people stop giving you from theirs. Um, so I think diversifying your buckets is the best way to go, because then you don't have to worry about, oh, well, Bryce is busy, so I can't talk to anybody about this. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, well, that sucks. Like, you know, and it also sucks for Bryce because you would be hard pressed not to find a person that would hold a level of resentment, right? If you depend on someone, they're your sole person that you can depend on for this, and they fall short, which all humans do, then it's only natural that your system, your brain, your whatever is going to develop some sort of like about that, right? It's not going to feel great. And so it's not fair, I think, to require few people to fill the buckets of a complex individual, which we all are. I think we're a lot more complex than we lend ourselves to believe. Um, so I think it's one of those things where it's like, if you allow yourself to open up to more connection, it just enriches you, right? You know, having those friends and, you know, searching for new friends. You kind of mentioned like, oh, do I need to find new friends? And I'm like, I think everyone does. But that doesn't mean that you have to replace old friends, right? Like Dom isn't replaced. Dom, just so everyone knows, is my lifetime best friend. Like, will be my best man at my wedding. Um, like my brother, right? Like grew up together, been jumped together, fought together, dated in pairs. Like it was like one of those things where I'm like, hey, bro, I'm not really feeling her. And it was just like, okay, so when are you gonna break up with her? Because like he knew he had to break up with her friend at the same time, right? You know, it's like it was like that's the kind of relationship that we
Yeah.
had, and or have rather, you know. Now, you know, he's married, he got 2 kids. It's our relationships are different, right? It doesn't take away from when we connect. It's just as brothers again, right? We're sitting there, we take some shrooms and turn the lights down and watch Gladiator or play Mario Kart and talk about old shit, football and stuff like that. We played football together all the way up through high school and college. You know, been through a lot. You know, he calls my mom mom, I call his mom mom, like that kind of relationship. Uh, Very different. I talk to Bryce way more than I talk to him, but that doesn't mean that I've like forsaken that friendship. I've outgrown it. You know, the media of like you have to outgrow your relationships to feel like you're moving forward. You have to understand the positioning of your relationships and how those shift to move forward. Understanding that, yeah, dude, we're not going to be able to stay up every single Friday night and have you know, split a fucking $5 pizza from Little Caesars and bags of Grippos and play Madden until we pass out. Like that's just not our life anymore. And it doesn't mean that we're less of friends. It doesn't mean that we're not as close. It just means things have changed. And the more that people can accept and adapt to that change, the more relationships they can undertake, they can develop, without the pressures of like, we have to stay best friends because we've been best friends for so long. You know, that's just stupid.
Right, dude. No, and I'm sure some people in the audience right now are like, well, this is a departure from the typical trainer scoop, but that's purposefully planned. I want to get to some trading talk, some
Yeah,
coaching talk, but it all matters so much. And that's why I was just really excited to get your takes on these things.
I appreciate it. I mean, it's one of the things when people tell me that I go, that's cool. Like, I'm glad that people, I like to talk. So I'm glad that people like when I talk, you know, occasionally.
Right, right. And it's hard to like recognize your own gifts sometimes. I definitely get that too. Um,
What about the other day? I was like, not to get off topic, I bumped into somebody. And I was like, oh, my bad. And like, you know, 2 minutes later, someone bumped into me. And like, he bumped into me kind of hard. He said, he apologized, but I was just like, you never get to feel yourself, as weird as that
yeah,
sounds. Like you never get to like
right.
feel like what it feels like to run into you or to be accidentally pushed by you and stuff. Like people just go, that hurts. I'm like, what does it hurt? Like when people hit me, or does it hurt? You know, like you want to know what that shit feels like. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
It's a weird phenomena there.
You're a big motherfucker too, so like, yeah, you
Mm,
probably like made an impact.
I try, you know, just 220 walking around.
You know, before we get into the training coaching talk, I've always been curious because like you say, like from Akron,
Mhm.
black from Akron, like how'd you get into like the music taste that you like, right? Like, you just
Yeah.
had Lost Lands, mentioned that. You kind of had like a celebrity moment at Lost Lands, even, bro. Like
Yeah, that was dope.
you were holding it down. Okay, I want to hear about that specifically, but like I'm curious about the music because I love music. Talk to
Yeah.
me.
So honestly, just the connection piece, playing back to that. And I think it also plays into the coaching piece. You never know who you're going to meet. So I meet everyone like I want to know them. Like that's just it, because that's genuinely me. And so I
Mhm.
actually there was a guy in Columbus who everyone would confuse us. And it was ironic because we were in relationships at different times. So people would be like, oh, I saw Jeff out talking to this
Oh,
girl, but it was actually me, or
oh
vice
no.
versa. And so eventually he and I met. And then the irony was he actually tried to get on with my ex fiance at one point in time when they were in college. I heard a story about this guy, and then eventually I met this guy, and she commented later on and go, "Of course you're gonna be friends with him." I said, "Who's this?" She's like, "This is the guy." But I'm like, "That's funny." But either way, like Jeff is actually one of my best friends. Super well connected. He actually works for Prime Social, runs all the Breakaway festivals. So if you live in a place where you've seen Breakaway, that's him. That's his company. But his girlfriend Megan, her family owns a lot of the land that Lost Lands is on. So again, just one of my like a brother to me, and he's like, "Hey, bro, like we're gonna go to the pit." I'm like, "I don't know what the fuck the pit is." All right, sweet. He's like, "Oh, we're going up by the stage." I was like, "All right, sweet." And we walk like behind the stage. I'm like, "Ah, shit, like, this is dope, right?" And so like you're right, nothing compares to being next to a stage that's as big as 2 football fields, tall and wide, and you know, just feeling the music and shit like that being there. So that was super cool. As far as like the EDM scene and how I got into it, again, just like I don't shut myself off from shit. I think people like to develop their opinions or whatever and how they feel about certain stuff, and then that's them, right? Concrete them, and if you attack it, you attack them. They're not flexible to the idea of rethinking their opinions, positions, their likes. I'm not that person, right? I grew up on soul and R&B. My mom did not listen to rap. We were not allowed to listen to rap growing up. The only rap I was allowed to hear was gospel rap, which God, don't do it. Don't listen to it. But you know, it is one of those things where like I've just always loved the creative process, right? So even when I watch movies in a way where I'm like, okay, what's the story being told? Do I like the story? How's the story being shot? Do I like the way it's shot? Could I have shot it better? Would I have thought to shoot it better? How they wrap things up? What's the conclusion like? Like how they climax things. So I as
Real
a
quick
watch,
question for
yeah,
you, real
yeah,
quick.
go ahead.
What was your favorite Harry Potter movie?
Ooh, movie
Mm-hmm.
Half Blood Prince.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Half Blood Prince would have to be the movie. Favorite book, Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, just from hearing you say it, like the way you like watching the movies, I also agree with like certain like I don't know what the technical term is, but like it's almost like the way they color graded Half-Blood Prince and certain like the first scene even,
Yep.
like yeah, sorry. Go a
No,
whole tangent there.
the tonality of it is super dark and shit like that, obviously, which
Yeah,
appeals to me. And I
yeah,
love Snape.
yeah.
So I think there's a play there. And then
Hmm.
Chamber of Secrets was I also love Tom Riddle. I love Voldemort. I think his story is complex. I actually think that I've written about his parallels to Hitler. That's how into Harry Potter I am, as I have like diagnosed all the characters and run through what I believe like is going on them on a personal level. So yeah, I'm definitely a nerd in that space. But with music, I obviously gravitated towards rap because the celebrities look like me. I gravitate towards poetry. I love slam poetry. I love spoken word. So lyrics and lyricist really, really appeal to me. So I grew up, and it was funny because you talk about moving to a new place and the things that you like and trying to find people who like the same things that you like. And I'm like, I'm a black kid whose favorite rapper at that point in time was Eminem. I was like, no, dude, like I like the wordplay. So it was Eminem. And then obviously Wayne really came on in the space. So then it was Wayne. I was never a big Jay-Z fan. I always had respect for Jay-Z and Nas and Big and Pac. And then when I know their songs, but it didn't appeal to me. There was this angstiness, this angsty playfulness that Eminem and Lil Wayne embodied that very much was synonymous to what I felt inside, where I'm like, I'm edgy and I want to tell you to fuck off, but I kind of make you laugh when I tell you to I want to do both, right? And so, that was obviously a space I played in. And then you had certain people kind of come along that started to blend that space. And so then as I grew up and I started to try to understand my emotions, the irony was Kid Cudi drops on the scene, right? He comes right there, 08, 09. I'm graduating high school, kind of transitioning from like really a child to man. A lot of things in my life post high school did not go the way that I dreamed they would go. And so I was dealing with what I would probably consider my like second bout of like depressive space, like mentally just kind of really questioning my own existence and the purpose of it. And so Kid Cudi is like the first person that kind of comes in and is talking about that. Like Eminem talked about rage, right? And rage is normal for a man to feel, especially as a black man. But feeling sad, feeling alone, and that was a very interesting thing to be able to speak about out loud or even sing about out loud. So Kid Cudi kind of gave that space.
What's your
And
favorite Kid Cudi album?
Man on the Moon.
Yeah,
The Man on the Moon's a top 5 album for me all time. Like,
yeah.
regardless of what people say, like, I think it's one of the most impactful albums for me. And
It's
I
just
think
no
that
skips.
no
Like,
skips. And if you think about it, like you want to talk about legacy, Man on the Moon inspired the majority of the rap you hear on the radio today. Like the reason why like Juice World and those guys, Lil Yachty, etc., could come on the scene, even like Gunna and Thug and those guys, like when they come in, they have their traditional rap. I'm this, I'm that. Look at what I'm wearing, but they also have that rap that's like lends itself to emotionally what's going on inside of them.
mm-hmm,
Losing friends, and how that makes them sad and this, not mad, not you shot my friend, I'm gonna come shoot you, but damn, I'm burying my brother today. And now
mm-hmm,
I'm questioning if I want to live and stuff like that. And I think that's a very, very interesting space, which has
mm-hmm.
lent itself to other genres. So Kid Cudi, people don't give him the props for this, but Kid Cudi was the first person to at mass bridge EDM and rap, which I think go together so
Oh,
well, right? Like,
intergalactic, like yeah,
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 bro. Like, well, listen to the whole album. The whole album is
yeah,
just it's electronic,
yeah.
it's just electronic poetry essentially. And so, I definitely played with the space then. But then in college, I actually had a buddy who was really into country. I was like, dude, country, it just screams like I want to lynch black people. I don't want to do this, bro. This is not my thing. And there was this country bar called the Dusty Armadillo in Canton, and he was just like, hey, bro, I want you to come with me. And I was just like, I'm like, yeah, I'm black. He's like, bro, think about it this way. You'll probably be the only black guy there. See? He's like, but you're a good looking black guy who doesn't know how to do the dances. So now you become the guy who's saying, hey, can you teach me? I was like, ah, I like where this is going. I like where this is going. Right. And so, right. So I had a good night. I had a good night. I was the talk of the town. All the girls wanted to teach me how to do the fucking dances and shit. And so I didn't learn any of them, but I got to talk to them. So that was cool.
Yeah.
But that started opening up, like,
Mhm.
okay, now I'm really into like Jason Aldean and Blake Shelton and this and that. I'm like, yeah, I'm like Darius Rucker. He's black. Yeah. And so then
Right,
when
right.
Bryce obviously got really into EDM, I started hearing some EDM mixes. I started piecing together some of like the Skrillex stuff. Skrillex would partner with rappers and do some collabs from movies and stuff. And then got into Nightmare and Millennium, and obviously like they lend themselves. Nightmare lends himself still to rap and whatnot, but Millennium lends himself to that emotional side of things, which I was already kind of in tune with because of the Kid Cudi stuff. And then, it kind of just became a thing where I'm like, yeah, I can talk any kind of music you want, for the most part. And the EDM space, especially a place like Lost Lands, lends itself to a collective individuality where everyone can come and be themselves, and it's
Mhm.
encouraged, right? The authenticity of you, as weird as you are, because we all are fucking weird, please come as that so that I can appreciate that. It is that kind of space which makes you fall in love with the music and the atmosphere. It's just that much more.
Like I was like a while back, I might have been skeptical of like the harder styles of EDM, but like when you go and you see that, it's like, oh shit, this is just so cool, man. And yeah, it's something you probably have to experience. But yeah.
You have to experience that. Everyone, at least everyone, or sorry, every person should go to at least one show. If you can manage to go to a festival, preferably not a festival in a city. City festivals are not the same. If you can find a festival like a Lost Lands, it's kind of in the outskirts, that really lends itself to the oddities of human people
Mhm.
or humans. Um, I think that is a place where you will find a really interesting wow moment. Like, oh, okay. Like a lot of this shit doesn't matter that much. Like I should take this authentic version of myself out into the regular world because I think that it will be received pretty similarly. And also, there's it's not Nelson Mandela, fuck, but there's a quote, or not a quote, but a writing essentially. It starts off like our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that obviously we're powerful beyond measure. It goes on to say that, in pretty much shining and in doing the things that we love to do and being our true authentic selves, we give way to other people to take that on themselves as well, right? I am myself. Look at Chris being authentic and showing up, with the pieces of him that may not be as straight edge and pretty. I can do the same.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like, yeah, that ripple effect, man.
Should we get to the training stuff? I know
Yeah,
before we
dude.
bring up.
Yeah. Right, right. Yeah. So I'm just curious, like with your own personal fitness, like what's been up? What's the gym scene out in Denver like? Like, have you been hitting the weights? What's it been like?
Yeah, so we found this really cool gym, luckily. We just connected enough, found this gym that is a little private gym, which I'm used to. I'm spoiled. I won't do public gyms, at least not like consistently. There's
Mhm.
just an etiquette I've become very, very used to. And it'll irritate me. I think that as you continue to grow in the fitness space and whatever trajectory that is, right? If you become a coach or if you just are a person who just really, really cares about your training and optimizing it and enjoying whatever parts of it you can, because inevitably, like the enjoyment does typically go down, right? You don't have that zeal. Most people don't retain that zeal about training throughout the entire life of their training. There are ebbs and flows of how much you really want to invest in it. You want your process to be as unimpeded as possible, right? So going to a public gym or commercial gym where people leave weights all around and the machines are all fucked and just lots of people and got the gym bros, 4 of them on one fucking cable machine, and then the girls are all just a gaggle running around and posing in all the mirrors, so you can't pick up dumbbells and get in. It's just I can't do it. So but the gym scene here in Denver is actually not that great. It's
Yeah.
ironically enough, I thought for sure, because it's a young city, that there would be more of a gym scene here. I find like Springs and Boulder, they have a lot there. I know more is coming to Denver. Like there's a giant Lifetime being built, which I don't mind Lifetimes. It's just a lot of old people. But it's one of those things where like I think that they're starting, right? Even the gym that we're at right now, they're looking to expand, and they've only been open a year. So I think they realize that the need is there, the desire is there. It just needs to be fed. And if I had the patience and I wouldn't kill people, I would probably say, hey babe, let's get a loan, let's open up a really dope gym here in Denver, and I know that I can do it better than the majority of people who are trying to do it or thinking about doing it.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, we're kind of spoiled. I mean, I'll say we're spoiled being from Columbus. But that being said, I did see people hand cleaning with kilo plates at Grandview Pro multiple occasions. But yeah, I noticed that as well when I was in Denver. There's like the one what's like the pros gym, like the arm burst or
That arm
something.
burst, yeah, the arm thrust
Yeah,
gym. Yeah, I
it's
mean,
all right. But
it's cool. It's the dungeon gym. It's just one of those things where like I'm also past that phase. Like the gym is
yeah,
life, man. It's fucking if you're not jacked,
yeah,
like in your mom's basement, relax.
yeah, for real.
Relax. Like it's not that deep, bro. I'm not in that space, but I do care about my training. I want to use well engineered machines. I want to go to a place where the people who are there care about it. So you leave the machine the way you found it, right? Like that type deal. So like that shit matters to me. I think the part that probably bothers me the most, which I was spoiled because being at Grandview for so long, right? Since the early days when no one went there. I had a lot of input, right? I could go to Sean and be like, hey dude, like we should get this or we should get that. Because I think that a lot of gyms are owned by people who either are not coaches or don't coach well. That being said, like, gyms shouldn't have, if you have limited space, there's no reason to have a belt squat, a Smith machine, a leg press, and a hack squat taking up, fucking almost half your gym, right? Because a good program only needs one of those setups,
Yeah.
maybe, right? You're missing out on opportunities to really diversify your gym and lend itself to someone to do a well-rounded training session for every type of training. Because you're like, well, we need all of these machines because they all look cool and all big gyms have the hack squat and then it's you went for just the machine volume versus like, well, can someone come here and feel like we have everything that they would need, even if they have to modify certain things, they can still do everything here versus being like, I would really love to have instead of a hack squat, a V squat with the long arms, so I could do some level of like machine hinge comfortably. Obviously you can use a belt squat for that as well, but it's like you could do a lot more if you had a belt squat and like the V squat with the long arms versus like the hack squat in the corner. Like I don't need a hack squat and the leg press. Like you can choose between those.
That's why I love 614 Grove City location. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's like exactly what you just said. Yeah. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Eric. Making things make sense. But no,
Dude,
training for me has been like it's sorry. To your question, training for me has been better. Emily encourages me to go. She is pretty regimented, which keeps me on schedule and make sure because like Bryce will tell you, and I'm sure you feel the same way. Like eventually, when you're coaching so long and fitness is your life, like eventually your fitness takes a backseat. So you just like are doing the minimum, right? You're just doing shit to maintain, and it is fun to sit there and put a program together, even in kind of like a lightness, right? You're not trying to like really grow or really get strong. But I'm like, yeah, I have like 2 or 3 movements each day that I'm trying to progress week over week. And then maybe I change the periphery volume around just to give myself some freshness and some freedom in that. But it feels good to sit there and be like, I'm on this incline press. And I'm like, yeah, 3 plates, 3.5, 4 plates, 5 plates. Sweet.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
this is what it feels. It feels like to progress and get better at something and know that you're doing it each week and like shit's paying off. So
yeah.
it is a good feeling to bring back.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I liked watching your progression videos on that. Was it like the incline chest press?
It's the best machine ever.
Yeah.
It's the incline chest press. I need to get the actual brand of it, but yeah, I'm like, this is my favorite machine that I've used for any press variation, let alone
Hmm.
most machines just are not well engineered. So
Yeah.
that is a perfect machine.
Yeah, dude. Um, as we approach the final questions,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever watched the Modern Wisdom podcast, but
I've been told to. I have not.
yeah, yeah. So like he's asked like Chris Bumstead, Stan Efferding, Phil Heath, Sarah Safari, who's maybe not in the same caliber of that, but we love you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Top 10 exercises, just top 10 movements for
Hmm.
overall muscular development. And I mean, like you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
apply this to your coaching like lens or like, however you want to go about it. But I'm curious to hear your take on this, man.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm gonna because I can't count. Math is hard. Write these, not write them down, but mark them off.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do upper body first because I think upper body is relatively easy. Um, so I will say dumbbell incline press, but and I would put the B next to that as alternating. So alternating, but beginning in contraction, right? So contralateral sides remains extended while the rep is completed on the working side. Uh, Pec flies, preferably on a machine or cable. Some overhead press. I prefer Arnold's just because they give me like an athletic feel. I like Arnold's for my clients as well because I think that multi-planar movement is really, really important. And I know that our main goal is hypertrophy, and you don't want to introduce instability where unnecessary. But I do think for long-term health, multi-planar movement is important. So I like Arnold press.
I love
Uh,
that take from you, man. And I remember reading maybe an article you wrote too, and I was
mhm.
just like, damn, yeah,
It's
so
super important
true.
to me. I care about your life. Like bodybuilding is stupid, and so is the sport. So, in general, I care far more about what your life like is like after the stage. But also, we like winning. Um, I would say so. Not everyone's super familiar with this, but a step back row. So, step back rows, any sort of you can not obviously use a machine press. You can use a high row to kind of mimic this. But I want a really, really heavy unilateral lat focused row. So step back rows, half kneeling high row. There's a lot of different variations that you can throw there. So,
Did you do that on
uh,
the hammer strength
yep,
machine?
hammer
That
strength
yeah.
machine, brace with the offhand, and then you
Hmm.
kind of create like a vertical horizontal mechanism there, which I
Hmm.
think lends itself to a lot of lat growth, very targeted lat movement there, which I love. And then I would say I personally love plate raises. I love plate raises. They are not performed enough. Um, they're a really hard fucking movement, but they're also one of those movements that lends itself to body English that and you can continue to get really quality reps, right? Like with a lateral raise, because it's really, really unilateral, right? Like there's a good chance that as you start to fail, your right arm's going up. Like you start doing this, right? Because you're trying to use your body to heave up, but you know, you don't have that mechanism that kind of keeps you in symmetry. Whereas a plate raise, if you start to use a bit of a hip hinge, you're holding on to the same plate. So you don't have to worry about is my left arm getting righter or hard, I'm
Hmm.
sorry, left arm getting higher than my right arm, et cetera. It's like, no, they're raising together. So I think taking those really, really close, if not beyond failure, is really easy. So I definitely prefer that. And obviously other raise variations. Um, and then I would say RDLs, 100% RDL is my favorite glute development movement. And because I'm a hinge whore, I will also say deficit stiff leg deadlifts. I think that lends itself to Strength gains, again, also it lends itself to a functionality component, right? The very exaggerated range of motion necessitates that most people use less load and really focus on their execution, which has other crossover long-term effects, which are really important to me. That's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Leg press, but only if I have the Cybex squat press only. Fuck a linear leg press.
Once again, shout out to Eric because I was in both locations of 614.
Yes,
That
it
thing's
is
nuts.
super, super important to me to have that. Um, and then I will say machine hamstring curls and then some sort of calf variation, heavy calf variation. So a machine calf,
Hmm.
like probably seated, just so that way you could just blast them because people's calves are out there and they're shitty. And people typically, my reasoning for the machine hamstring, preferably seated machine hamstring, is that um, most people are really familiar with how hard it is to perform leg extension. Not to mention, most people have squat dominated programs, like if they're creating for themselves. So the quads are already getting a ton of action. I don't think that a lot of people really focus on their hamstring development, which is why you have a lot of quad dominant people out there, especially females. So having a seated hamstring curl for you to go die on is really important.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Yeah. Especially because I don't know, like I definitely did because I was just not super athletic and learning things was hard. Proprioception wasn't great for me, but the hinge took a
Mm-hmm.
long ass time for me to nail down. So agree there.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um
don't know if as a guy it's a good thing, but I remember Bryce at one point in time, he goes, I'm not gonna lie, man, you just got a really pretty hinge. I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing that for me. I'm thank you, but I also don't,
That's funny. That's something he would say too. He just appreciates it so much. He tears
yeah,
down
just a
all the
pretty
borders
hinge,
in
man.
between.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
I love that. I love that exercise. Question about one of them. So I know that you do a lot of like unilateral stuff,
Mm-hmm.
especially when I was like shooting some video from you. I noticed that you were doing like the landmine,
Mm-hmm.
shoulder press. So what's the rationale with the unilateral work that you work in for your programming?
Yeah, I'm big on, I mean, athletic background. I'm big on symmetry. Big thing is any athlete, no matter what sport or genre of athlete, will build up a level of bias towards one side, right? One, we like doing things that feel really good. Two, if your right side feels better than your left side, you're probably going to push a little harder, not just because it's easier, but even if you have like a stronger muscle mind connection. Like you might get to rep 12 and you're supposed to stop at 12. Like, this feels so good. So you go to 13, you go to 14, but then you can't mimic that. You can't mimic the sensation or the volume on the weaker side. And so I like to program it inversely and say, hey, start with your weaker side and then match the reps on the other side. And yes, we are leaving something in the tank on the other side, but we are also building symmetry. We're building a more well-rounded human being. And I think that a lot of injury, even beyond bodybuilding, like obviously the apparent thing in bodybuilding is bodybuilding likes balance, right? If you're going to get on stage, they want to see balanced physique. So that's that. And also a lot of injury comes from compensatory mechanisms gone wrong, right? You have a really you have weak glutes, so your low back is taking on things, right? You have weak hamstrings, so your hips get all fucked up. But it's not usually like both hamstrings. It's usually like one side, right? People typically have a problematic side. Oh yeah, my right QL, my right knee, my right ankle. It's like there's a pattern here. It's actually pretty easy to point out. And so that is the main rationale between or for my like unilateral affiliation.
Yeah, yeah, dude. I think it's like something that I definitely slept on until reading more of what you and Bryce wrote. And especially like those imbalances will catch up to you and they will fuck you up. Like caught up to me. I had like my left glute was always weaker. I finally came back from an injury that took me like a year and a half to rehab because I was just being stupid. But yeah, like putting effort into those, while you might have to take away some of the hypertrophy focus, it's super beneficial for the long term because if you're in the game long term, you're gonna build a great physique. And yeah, you might have to take that one step backward, or I won't even say two step forward. It's like 10 steps forward. So I
100%. I mean,
appreciate you explaining that.
it feeds your bilateral work, right? Like,
Mm,
you know, typically people can, if they're honest, they'll like, yeah, like I was doing dumbbell press and my left side, it just started to stick, right? Or my arm starts shrinking in back to my side because my shoulder's weak on that side, right?
Yeah.
But I've had to rehab my shoulders 3 times from separations or dislocations and stuff like that. And each time I come back and I'm stronger, I hate the time period when I'm doing unilateral work and it's lighter and it's annoying and it's painstaking. You feel like you're leaving gains on the table because you're not just going to go die on a machine and ignore what's happening there at the joint. But every time I've put that work in for 2, 4, 8, 12 weeks, I always come back and I feel strong, like stronger, more confident. I don't have that like wariness of like, I have to be careful because my shoulder might give, whatever. Right. So it's super important. And I think that getting your clients to really buy into that leads to all positive things for them, right? Because the stronger your clients get and the more you allow their imbalances to, prevail, the more noticeable it gets, right? You as a guy, as a physique competitor, you get up there, you got to flare your lats. Well, I'm telling you right now, the stronger and bigger you get, the more considerably noticeable that imbalance becomes, right? Oh, we can definitely see his right lat flare, but his left lat is pinched. It's weird. It's kind of doing its own thing. When you're smaller, when you're not as strong, you're not as big or whatever, like it's not as noticeable. So it's easy to keep going, no, just keep getting bigger. But when you get bigger, because of that imbalance, it will show that you are imbalanced a lot more. And now me sitting 20 feet from you, I can see that. And that's not what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very important that they're in the program for everyone out there listening. Oh shoot. Yeah. Chris, we could go on all day, I feel like. I definitely got to get you back on at some point
Oh,
to
indubitably.
delve into like coaching and specifics because yeah, like I know you have some maybe slightly more unique coaching takes and
Mhm.
overall you just have like a great relationship with your clients and you support them in ways that are outside of just delivering great programming. So definitely for another podcast because I'm sure we could get into hours and hours on that. But
You
dude, just
got you got time for one more question if you want. We got 5 minutes.
if okay. If you were to offer, like, let's say someone's been coaching for like a year, they have like, let's say like 10 online clients. What would some of your tips be for someone as they're looking to grow their business from there?
Go to as many people as possible and be as helpful as possible as quickly as possible in whatever aspect. um I mean, even me, right? I've recently gotten to the habit of seeing people train, and if I see something wrong, I'll go, hey, do you mind if I be a dick and offer some unsolicited advice? And it just broaches the conversation, right? It's a funny, whatever way, because of course there's people out there that go, of course he thinks he knows what he's talking about, but it kind of like pokes fun at that very thing, right? And I'm like, hey, like, if you really want to feel this, or if you really want to do that, or if you want this movement to be as effective as possible, just my opinion, you can also tell me to fuck off. Here's what I would do. Send them a quick voice memo, right? I've converted 2 clients in the last 2 months on that, right?
Whoa, damn.
Right. And like, it's not like we're like hurting, like people aren't coming in, but like those are 2 people that might have just been on the periphery. And maybe that simple engagement was a way to just kind of like broach that conversation and invite them to kind of come into the fold. um you know if you're just starting out, I think, again, back to the earlier point, no matter what you do, no matter what kind of schooling you have, what letters are after your name, people will always care about it significantly less than you do. So what you have to do is find a way to offer that value immediately, and with them having little to no perceived risk, right? So coach as many people as you need to for free until they realize they should be paying you hundreds of dollars for this service, right? Like, people don't like to steal. It's a natural thing. No one wants to take something, but people don't want to buy junk either. So if you tell someone that something is something versus showing someone that something is something, the latter is always going to prevail. So if you're out there and you got 10 clients and you want 20, offer 10 people to come on for free,
Yeah.
right? And then try to convert them after, 4 weeks, 8 weeks into a paying client. You will get more no's than you get yeses because finance is finance and we're in a recession, right? But you will have 2 to 3 more opportunities to close people than you would have had if you just kept sitting on your pedestal and saying, I deserve this much. I won't coach for free. I won't work for free. So every Netflix gives away free parts of the subscription. Hulu does. These are multi-million-dollar companies. They're way bigger than you will ever be. They give away free shit. Give away free shit. Get your name out there. Give people an opportunity to see how special you are. Boom.
Chris, I really appreciate your time, man. That was a great podcast, all in all. Yeah, and I'd still love to get back at a part two,
course.
hopefully down the road pretty soon.
You let me know
Yeah,
when.
yeah. Do you have anything you want to promote? Any shout outs you want to make where the people can follow you before we wrap it up?
Sure. Guys, this has been Chris. My last name is Beal. You can find me on Instagram at Classic Chris, classic with a CK, because things are sick. Who knows? I just did it because it worked. But obviously, company co-owned with Bryce, Progressive Performance, P2 on Instagram. We also have podcasts there. David has helped us with a lot of stuff there. I still have videos from David that I want to get posted. But just come over and join the fold, man. We're all about community. We're all about connecting. Even if you don't want to, join on the team immediately, we definitely welcome people into the Discord, ask training questions. The engagement, the community aspect of it is huge to us. So definitely just hop on over, give me a follow. I do follow back as long as you have, coolness in you. Don't be a weirdo. But no, guys, thanks again for listening. Thank you, David, for having me. And I actually can't wait to do a part two because I've been doing podcasts out the wazoo and I've been enjoying them. So let's keep doing them.
Hell yeah, dude. Thank you once again. Thank you all for listening. We'll catch you in episode 78.
Wait.